Hi everyone, I'm Ron Cantor, and you're watching Identity Theft, how Jesus was robbed of his Jewishness. Now we've been looking at several of the names of the central figures in the New Covenant. I want to take a look on this video at the name of Paul, or Saul. When I first heard of this fellow, Paul the Apostle, I didn't think there could be anything Jewish about him. You can imagine my shock when I found out that Paul the Apostle was actually a guy by the name of Shaul or Saul. He was an Orthodox Jew, not just an Orthodox Jew, a Pharisee, not just a Pharisee, he was actually a rabbi, and he studied under one of the most famous rabbis of his day, Gamliel. Now, this fellow Shaul, or Saul, he began to persecute Messianic Jews. In fact, he even oversaw the stoning of Stephen. He put dozens of believers in jails, and on one trip, he was literally on his way to arrest more Messianic Jews when a bright light came. He got up on his feet and he couldn't see, he was blinded, and then he had a little conversation with Yeshua, where Yeshua said, "Dude, why are you persecuting me? You want God. That's who I am. You're on the wrong team." Well, this fellow by the name of Shaul, he became a believer at that time, and then he went on to write so much of the New Covenant. Now, there's one passage that causes a lot of confusion about this fella, and it's right here in the book of Acts, chapter 13, verse 9. It says, "Then Saul, who was also called Paul." Now, from that little verse, I've heard people teach that Paul actually changed his name from his yucky Jewish name to a nice Roman name. Well, I got a few problems with that. First of all, why would a Jewish name be bad and suddenly a Roman name, which is Rome, paganism, polytheism, why would a Roman name suddenly be synonymous with a good and holy name? Well, it wouldn't. There's another problem with this. Why did he wait so long to change his name? This is years after he became a believer. He had already gone to Jerusalem and to Antioch, and now he was working with Barnabas, preaching the good news of Yeshua, and then suddenly he changes his name? Well, first of all, you got to realize it doesn't say he changed his name. It says Saul, who was also called Paul. Now, Jewish people know this, especially if they live outside of Israel, that it's very common for a Jewish person to get two names. You have a name that is connected with the society that you live in, and Paul lived in a Greek-speaking culture, and he was a Roman citizen, so it would have been normal that he had two names, one for that area of life, which was Paul, but then when he was in Israel, when he was conversing in Hebrew or Aramaic, when he was studying with other Jewish rabbis, he had a Jewish name, which was Shaul or Saul. Very common, believe it or not. Yours truly was given two names when I was just a little baby. My given name that people most of my life have called me is Ron, or actually, if I'm honest, it's Ronald. But I also have a Hebrew name, and that's Chaim. It's very normal for Jewish children all over the world to get a name that is connected to the culture in which they live, as well as a Hebrew name. You might be wondering, well, Ron, why don't you go by Chaim now that you live in Israel? Well, it turns out that Ron is now a very popular Hebrew name, and I'm okay with that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that this small misunderstanding, thinking that Paul, when he became a believer, had to take on a new name and get rid of his Jewish name, it causes Jewish people to think that there's nothing Jewish about this fellow named Paul. It also causes Jewish people to think that the New Covenant is anti-Jewish, when it's not. They were all Jews. That's why we're talking about the names of all these people in the New Covenant. Okay, you have been watching Identity Theft, how Yeshua was robbed of his Jewishness. Stay tuned for our next video coming up.